From the reign of Luigi to the rise of Bayonetta to more C tiers than I could keep track of, this past weekend had lots of exciting events in the world of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Welcome to another episode of Rister Recaps, where I go over everything notable that went down this past weekend. I'm your host, Rister Mice, returning from a trip to Eureka Springs and very sorry that there weren't 2 videos this week. Without further ado, let's get right into it, and jump into what you need to know from this past week of Smash. The largest tournament to go down this past weekend was Cost 2024, and it was won by Lima, having perhaps his best performance of the year so far, and triumphing over the first seed of the event, Onin, as the 4th seed. And to be totally fair, I did say that Onin's biggest and perhaps only threat to prevent them from winning was Lima in my pre-tournament analysis. And while Onin's path to Grands was absolutely dominant, their only Game 5 being in Winners Finals against Dabuz, Lima's path to Grands was absolutely filled with strife. You see, in Top 64, Lima actually got upset early on by Kentucky Kazuya main Wilds, dropping into losers extremely early. From here, Lima went on an insane run to Top 8, beating Ice Knight in a Game 5, E-King 3-0, and lastly, reverse 3-0ing Doorstop's PT to enter Top 8. And once there, Lima's momentum just picked up speed, with Lima obtaining wins over Geist in the Bayo Ditto 3-0, winning the run back versus Wilds 3-1, defeating the other big losers run in the form of a 3-1 over Chase, and lastly defeating Dabuz 3-0 to make it into Grand Finals from loser's side, where Lima had the only Game 5 of this Top 8, the first set of Grands against Onin. After resetting the bracket though, Lima only needed 4 games to defeat Onin again, winning Cost 2024. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the other large losers run of this tournament belonged to Chase, the 8th seed. Chase suffered an early loss to No Tag's Mario in Top 64, and then proceeded to tear through the losers bracket just as Lima had. In losers, Chase beat Fair, Bacon, and fellow top 8 seed Peanut, who had also been upset early. Lastly, Chase defeated both Free K Flock and one more top 8 seed, MK Big Boss, in a close Game 5 set to barely make top 8 from loser's side. In top 8, Chase played a bit of cleanup duty, eliminating the big breakouts such as Icy Mist as well as Candle, both of which were 3-1 victories. Afterward though, Chase had to fight the other big losers run, and we all know how that set turned out. But 4th place as the 8th seed after being upset early on is an impressive performance nonetheless. Our 2 5th place finishers are Candle the Olimar and Wilds the Kazuya. We've been talking about Wilds like crazy so far, as the kid from Kentucky had probably the biggest breakout of the entire tournament. Well, at least everyone who's not from Kentucky thinks so, as his home state has known about his true talent for a long time. Keep underseeding him, they say. He'll just prove everyone wrong with upsets. And that's certainly what happened at Cost, as Wilds defeated Comet and Lima, both in 3-0 victories, as well as MK Big Boss in a close Game 5 set, making top 8 from winner's side before being double eliminated by Onin and Lima, the top 2 finishers. Candle, on the other hand, has been making breakouts for seemingly months now, and I've been covering their insane rise to prominence this whole time. Coming into Cost as the 10th seed, Candle garnered wins over Ling, Peanut, and Doorstop, all in 3-1s. With the win over Peanut being especially notable as he was a top 8 seed of the event. Sadly though, Candle would lose back-to-back to Dabuz and Chase for 5th place. And our last notable story from this top 8 is Icy Mist, the 14th seed. When she entered top 64, she defeated Ice Knight in a Game 5 set and then lost to Dabuz 3-0, in a rough pull matchup-wise. From here, Icy Mist tore through losers bracket, defeating Comet and Loaf, both in 3-1 set victories, before lastly and most impressively defeating top 8 seed Beast Mode Paul in a close Game 5 set, to make top 8 from loser's side. Sadly though, she would later lose to Chase 3-1 for 7th place, but Icy Mist was the lowest seed to make top 8 at Cost 2024. To wrap this tournament up, let's go over some of the big upsets. There weren't any big runs per se, but there were plenty of solitary upsets to speak of. Now, we've actually gone over quite a few of the really big ones, like No Tag defeating Chase, Candle defeating Peanut, and Wilds' entire run. And the remaining upsets actually revolve around the same few players. First up is Geist, who defeated a top 8 seed in Anathema 3-0. This is actually what I predicted would happen in last week's video, given the extremely favorable matchup for Bayo. Geist would actually go on to make top 8, eventually placing 7th. Next is Ukit, a Jigglypuff main that managed to defeat Loaf 3-1, sending the Wario main careening down into losers. And what do you know, Anathema and Loaf would actually end up meeting each other down there, with Loaf defeating Anathema 3-1 to eliminate the number 6 seed at 17th place. Oh, and MKLeo DQ'd. So, you know, that's sad. Now it's time for us to move on to the other tournaments that took place across the world of Smash. Most of these tournaments were C tiers, but 2 of them were B tiers, otherwise known as Super Regionals. The first was Cost, which we've gone over, and the other was Maesuma Landmark No. 1, a tournament all the way in Japan. Maesuma Landmark 1 drew in 96 entrants and was the only tournament other than Cost to be anything higher than a C tier. The winner of this tournament was Rauru, the world's best Luigi player. Raru's path to Grands was fairly dominant, garnering wins over Tora, Goryoka, and Yoshidora, going game 5 but clutching it out to make Grands through winner's side. Meeting him there would be the other plumber brother, Snow's Mario. Snow, impressively, would end up taking the first set of Grands 3-1, but in the reset, Rauru clutched out a game 5 to win Maesuma Landmark 1. Now, Snow's run was actually quite impressive in its own right. Snow lost to Yoshidora in winner semifinals in a close game 5 set, dropping into losers and proceeding to tear through the losers bracket, defeating Denkoda, who we will be talking about later, 3-0, as well as 33 Perrenbox in a 3-1 set victory, and lastly winning the run back versus Yoshidora in a 3-0 sweep, with Snow getting his first ever win over Yoshidora in a dominant fashion. And while other top 8 finishers had a fairly standard performance, like Yoshidora, 33 Perrenbox, Goryoka, and Ryuo, looking at this top 8 roster, there's a big standout performance. That performance belongs to Denkoda, the Lucas main. Coming into Maesuma Landmark as the 12th seed, Denkoda got 2 big wins in pools, defeating Siobhan and impressively Jogibu to make top 24. Once there, Denkoda lost to Goryoka in a close game 5 set, dropping into losers and lastly defeating Tas to make top 8 through losers side. Once there, Denkoda defeated Shori in a close game 5 set before losing to Snow to place 5th, one of Lucas's best runs at a tournament of this size. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to Shori, an up-and-coming Wolf main who placed 7th as the 14th seed, with notable wins over Takaberry, Levi, and most impressively, Tora, the world's best Ike. And that wraps it up for notable events at Maesuma Landmark 1, which means it's time for us to move on to the plentiful C tiers. And luckily for us, we don't even need to leave Japan to head to our first one, Jingu High 2. For these C tiers, I'll mostly just be going over the winner for the sake of time. And when it comes to Jingu High 2, that title belongs to Robert Kakusu. Robert Kakusu is most known for being the Donkey Kong who beat Spargo. But as I've talked about before, Robert Kakusu is not a solo DK main, and is more of a DK Falco Co main. However, this run was quite insane, as it was primarily done through losers bracket. In winners quarters, Robert Kakusu lost a game 5 to Yonepi, the Pichu main. Dropping into losers, Robert Kakusu tore through bracket, defeating Tora in a close game 5 set to make top 8, and then beating Avaru, the Steve Minmin Co main, in another game 5, 33 Perrenbox's Steve in another game 5, Rocky, the Kazuya Steve co-main, in a 3-1, and lastly, Min Min main with a secondary Steve, Omawatsu, in one final game 5 set to enter grand finals from loser's side. And yes, that character pool was a nightmare, and Robert Kakusu still prevailed either way. His opponent in grand finals was MZK, the Duck Hunt main that recently made top 8 at a major at Maesuma Grand Wars, and is likely the world's best Duck Hunt at the moment. In this grand set, Robert Kakusu absolutely dominated MZK, 6-0ing him to win Jingu High 2. But that doesn't diminish the importance of MZK's run either, getting wins over 33 Perrenbox and Omawatsu, continuing to be the only bastion of Duck Hunt seemingly in the entire world. So now, we're going to have to take a look at the other C tiers to go down this weekend, and that means taking a trip over to Europe for Chad's Saga Pirates Edition. Chad's Saga was a pinnacle of European talent as well as a few American invaders. At the top of the mountain was Siski, who won the tournament fairly dominantly. only going Game 5 against Mpopo, who we'll talk about later. Siski also gathered wins on Pew and Madzai twice. For his side of things, Madzai went on an amazing run, gathering wins on Andres FN, Mr. E, WebJP, and Mpopo, to eventually place second as the 4th seed. But by far, the most notable run at this entire tournament was that of Mpopo, a Rosalina main who was coming into the tournament as the 10th seed, and got wins over Steve main Susu, Mr. E, and WebJP. And yes, you heard me right, WebJP lost to Rosalina and Pac-Man, two of Sheik's absolute worst matchups in the entire game. Poor Web. Now we move over to North America to take a look at the plentiful C tiers that took place across the continent, the biggest of which was Texas Reverie 2024. This tournament was an invitational of 16 of Texas's finest players. And just like I predicted last week, Grands was between Mudace and Shattuck. Ultimately, Shattuck was the one who prevailed, though the two of them did trade sets between each other. Other than that, the only thing of note between these two is the fact that in pools, Mudace actually dropped a set in the Peach Ditto to Yalmanac. But because of the tournament style, this didn't affect Mudace's run too much. In fact, speaking of which, Yalmanac was probably the biggest story from this entire tournament. On top of the win on Mudace, Yalmanac went on a massive losers run at this tournament, tearing through the bracket and defeating Patu, Atomic, and Spritzy on the way to an eventual 4th place finish. Our next tournament is Keep It Real Generations, a Georgian tournament that ended up being very simple. Didi, the Steve main with a nasty PT secondary, absolutely swept this tournament with a show of complete dominance. DD only dropped one game in pools, and beyond that, swept the tournament flawlessly, with notable wins over Sonido and Vendetta twice. And I'll be completely honest, Didi is low-key a top 15 player if he was able to just travel more. I personally am waiting for the day this kid gets a passport or a car and just becomes the next Nicola. Dropping down to Mexico for a little bit, we have El Dojo Masters 7, which was taken by Waka, just like I predicted in my pre-tournament analysis. Meeting him in Grands was Monty, who actually had quite the run at this tournament. The two met each other in winners finals, when Waka defeated Andrik and Monty reverse 3-0'd Alandis in a great win. In winners finals though, Monty actually defeated Waka, casting him down into losers finals. And after defeating Alandis 3-1, he moved back up into grand finals from losers side. Waka then adapted expertly and 3-1'd Monty twice to win El Dojo Masters 7. By the way, do you all know that Alandis has a brother, a Sonic main named Alex Disc? I mentioned the odd similarity in a video previously, at which point I was informed that they were brothers. So, you know, that's pretty neat. And lastly, the tournament that I've been very excited for, Let's Go Springfield number 5, which means that I finally get to talk about this tournament's winner, Kansas City's very own Deathspade. Deathspade, the 2nd seed, is from my home region of Kansas City, and started off the weekend by getting through pools with only one game dropped to Princess Sonic. Afterward, Deathspade defeated Silsey, Yellow Salami, and Prince again to make top 8 through winners. Lastly, Deathspade beat Tim Prater 3-0 and Apollo Kage twice, 3-1 in winners finals and 3-2 in grand finals, to win LGS 5 as the 2nd seed. That's right, my GOAT Deathspade double eliminated Apollo Kage in a matchup that many Bayo mains consider terrible, though Deathspade himself will say that it's even. With this win, Deathspade becomes the first Kansas City player to ever win a C tier or above tournament. And while I'm giving totally unbiased shoutouts, here's one to Toffee, the other Kansas City player in top 8. Toffee, after beating Spice in a game 5, lost to MD early on in top 64. Once that happened, Toffee tore through losers bracket, defeating Unite 3-0, Shadow 3-1, Zefty in a game 5, Trejon 6 3-1, and Nosmo 3-1 to make top 8, wherein Toffee then defeated Caden 3-1 and Tim Prater 3-0 before losing to MD again in the run back, though this time it went to a decisive game 5. That eliminated Toffee at 4th place as the 4th seed after the best losers run of the entire tournament. And I'm not saying that Toffee would have beaten Apollo Kage, but you know what? No, actually, I am saying that Toffee would have beaten Apollo Kage. That's my GOAT right there. And that wraps it up for everything notable that happened this past week in the world of Smash Ultimate. But as you may remember from last week's episode, I'm planning on running a monthly segment focused around our sister game, Melee. And as this is the last episode of this month, let's go over a month of Melee. The only Melee major to go down this month was Tipped Off 15 Connected, which took place in Georgia and drew in 513 entrants. The winner was Mango, who in the most Mango way possible wins a major right after people begin to count him out. Mango defeated Cody Schwab, 2023's ranked number 1, both in winners finals and grands to take the title. Within the top 8, the other notable story was Plup, who is somewhat similar to Mango in the sense that Plup can just decide to be the best player in the room when he wants to be, with the key difference being that Plup simply doesn't attend many tournaments. But the biggest story of this entire tournament is the fact that Hungrybox didn't make top 8, ending a streak of top 8ing majors that spanned over 9 years. Nearly a decade-long streak that ended at Tipped Off 15 when Hungrybox was double eliminated by Mango's Fox and Moki's Fox. Another notable tournament that went down is Out of the Blue 3, a Chicago tourney that drew in 249 entrants. And sorry, but I couldn't get the VODs for this one. I went to the Twitch page and there was just nothing. It did happen at the start of the month, so I think the Twitch VOD expired and it was just never uploaded anywhere. Anyways, Salt would end up winning this tournament. Another dub in her rapidly growing resume of tournament performances. And notably, she was followed by Ossify, the second place finisher who I've covered on this channel before as one of Melee's rising stars. And lastly, we have Smash Camp New Lands 2024, an Oregon tournament with just under 200 entrants, which was won by Magi, with Fiction and B-Bats filling in second and third. Magi is also one of the competitors whose stocks just keep going up and up, and she's also a personal favorite of mine. That was a month of Melee, where we take a look at how our sister game is doing. And before we take a look at what Smash tournaments are going down this weekend, I can't stop thinking, Melee is just known for its stylish and flashy combos, but Smash players, Melee or not, can't really seem to replicate that same style that their combos have. If only there was some corporation that could help them get more style. Oh, you already know where this is going. This video is partially brought to you by Into the AM, an apparel company that's partnered with my channel to help you chase your passions and look dashing while doing so. And now, Into the AM has initiated their 4th of July sale, which you can use to get 30% off site-wide. Not a big enough deal for you? Check out their clearance section and get up to 80% off. Still not a good enough deal? Dang, I respect it. But I've got good news for you, because when you use my coupon code RISTER or any of my affiliate links found in the description or the pinned comment, you can get an additional 10% off of any order. Want to get 90% off of clearance items or 40% off of anything else? Then use my coupon code or my affiliate links and get yourself a brand new outfit. You'll be directly supporting my channel when you do. With that done, where were we? Ah yes, the upcoming Smash tournaments of this weekend. Let's go ahead and get into that, shall we? The biggest tournament going down this weekend is Ult Core 3rd, a major going down in Japan that's drawn in 320 entrants, and is the only tourney happening this weekend that's a major, as everything else didn't make the cutoff. But here's the thing, shockingly enough, only 3 days before the tournament, the seeding for Ult Core 3rd hasn't been released to the public, at least at the time I'm recording this. So all we can go over is notable entrants. As you can see, it's a very big tournament that is strictly Japanese competitors. Thing is, neither Akola nor Mia are attending, meaning that Hurt is the clear favorite to win the event. In my opinion, the other strong contenders are Raru, Yoshidora, and Ashimo. But if you ask me, I think we'll be seeing a Hurt Raru Grands. The second largest tournament is CEO 2024, which is going down in America, Florida specifically. And yes, CEO is not a major, just a B+ tier. The top 4 seeds, in order, are Riddles, Dabuz, Cola, and Jazzo. And they're joined by Anathema, Beast Mode Paul, Omega, and Apollo Kage. And while Cola and Jazzo are both hype, with Jazzo especially playing very hot lately, here's the thing. This tournament is a massive, historic tourney series that's barely not a major. And if there's one thing that Dabuz is really good at, it's winning tournaments that barely aren't majors. So personally, my money's behind the reigning champion, Dabuz. Next up is Out of Pocket, a B tier going down in Canada. The top seeds of Out of Pocket include the tourney's namesake, Onin, as well as Ouch, Neo, and Big D. They're flanked by names like Base Mage, Chunky Kong, JDV, and Thembo Z, the Duck Hunt player formerly known as Embo Z, rocking a new tag. Personally, call me lame, but I think Onin's got a really good shot at winning this tournament. But keep an eye on Chunky Kong. This is the first time that Chunky is really leaving the US as far as I'm aware, so this is going to be a really good experience for the Kong either way. Next, we'll move on to our C tiers this weekend, starting with the American one, Ocean State Jablock. Okay, so to be perfectly fair, I'm not sure the people at this tournament would have pushed CEO to be a major. Light was supposed to be there, so maybe it would have in that case, but Light isn't signed up anymore, so I'm not sure. The top seeds are Mars, Ling, and Leviathan, who, by the way, is Naito Sharp. I literally had no idea that Leviathan was Naito Sharp when I made my CT GamerCon video, and I feel so dumb for not realizing it. Anyways, I think Mars will likely win, but Apple Reviewer is showing up, and Mars has had difficulty with Mii Brawler in the past, so maybe Apple Reviewer will end up giving Mars some trouble. Next up is a Japanese C tier, Big Lagoon, which as far as I understand isn't taking away from Ult Core 3rd because they're happening far enough away from each other time-wise. In fact, the first seed is Toriguri, who's signed up for Ult Core 3rd as well. The second seed is Teishi, the Samus main we talked about a lot in last week's video. To be frank though, aside from Aegis main Fire being the third seed, I'm not sure you all would recognize any of the other top seeds. It's a pretty small tournament. And for our last two tournaments, we move over to Europe. Firstly, to France for Cora Cup Nancy, which is drawing in 115 entrants. The first seed is Gluttony, followed by Crepe Soleil and Raflo. And while Gluto may seem to be the obvious choice, I actually think Crepe Soleil will win this tournament, given his recent rise to prominence in Europe. Other top 8 seeds include Leon, Orion, Flo, Madzai, and Rarkyor. And lastly, we have Smashborg Siege, going down in Norway. The top seed of this event is Bloom Forever, flanked by Lancelot and Mr. R. Other top 8 seeds include the Schmixtape, Anvil, Meru, I Refuse, and Pipwolf. And call me boring, but yeah, I think Bloom Forever will probably win. That is, unless they decide to troll with random again. And that wraps it up for every single notable Smash tournament going down this weekend. But before we go, here's some miscellaneous Smash news. LumiRank announced 2 new majors, the first of which being Seibugeki 17, going down in Japan, which at the moment only has Japanese talent signed up. The second one is Smash Factor 11, which will be a super major going down in Mexico. And most importantly, Smash Factor 11 is confirmed to be the final major of this ranking season, the first half of 2024. According to the Twitter account, we'll be seeing some Japanese reps at this tournament, but we're not exactly sure who just yet. LumiRank also announced some changes to their points system, which is very complicated. Go ahead and read it yourself if you're into that kind of thing, but in short, these changes should help out regions in the United States like the Midwest by giving them multipliers that'll make it easier to host C tiers and some B tiers, instead of being trapped in D tier purgatory. And it'll help some of those higher B tiers finally push the threshold into major. And lastly, Luminosity Gaming themselves, not LumiRank, made a very exciting announcement. You remember last week when the Luminosity Smash Invitational 2 was announced, and many people complained that it overlapped with UFA and Umebura? The Smash community begged Luminosity to push the tournament back. And hey, what do you know? They listened to us, as Luminosity announced that the tournament would be postponed to September 28th and 29th, and thus has no major scheduling issues. And that wraps it up for today's show. This past weekend had a lot of stuff going down, and what was so interesting was the vast amount of C tiers taking place all across the world. Bayonetta and Luigi are seemingly dominating right now, and I'm excited to see what next weekend will bring. Who will win CEO? Will it become a major at the last minute? Will Hurt or Raru win Ult Core 3rd? And as the ranking season winds down, what do you think the final rankings will look like with this crazy season that we've had? For all these questions and more, stay tuned for next week's episode. For today, though, that's going to be it for today's video. Before I go, shout out to my patrons Seth Laster, Logan S, Persipalm, Wawa, Mr. Sinister, Happy Feet, Ocean Man, Mistybot, and my 2 patrons Iltis, Diamond Blaze, and Ben L. Additionally, shout out my YouTube members DJ Jr., Defective, Boston R, Gonesis B, Kirby Fan, Nexus, Loco Soco, and my 2 members Mike G, Wu-Tang Forever, and Stormtrooper. Lastly, extra special thanks to my Tier 3 supporters Fat Blizzard, who says big deal make it out of his slump, Avidun, who says Mr. Rice is the Go to Smash content, Iltis, who says MK Leo always comes back, and Grant I Am. If you want to support me using any of these methods, Links are in the description down below. Don't forget to use my coupon code RISTER in order to get 10% off of any order from India the AM. And lastly, I want to give one last sincere thanks to Let Me Fly for their continued support of my channel. Link to their Twitter page is also in the description. Don't miss my next upload. But until then, I've been Mr. Mice, and thank you all so very much for watching.
Baby, baby.